Let's talk about master detail relationship. So a master detail relationship is of a parent-child relationship, again one-to-many relationship, where the child is the detail and the parent is the master. In this particular relationship, this particular field is always required on the child record. Like in the scenario of lookup relationship we saw, we had an option to select the account or leave it blank. So that field was optional. But in master detail relationship, when we create it, it will always be required. Another very interesting point of master detail relationship is that it derives all the excess and the ownership from the master record. Like all the permissions and everything is derived from the master record and not of its own self. This is not the case in the lookup relationship. Another unique point of master detail relationship is that when a master record is deleted, all the child records are also deleted. Another interesting advantage of master detail relationship is that you can have roll-up fields. So on the master record, you can roll up the details of the child records. So what does roll-up field lets you do is it lets you summarize the detail record. So how you can summarize? You can summarize using 4 values. You can either count how many detail records are there. That could be 1. You can calculate the maximum, you can calculate the minimum, you can calculate the average of certain values. So let's say if the opportunity is child of the account, so then you can calculate what is the total opportunities we had with this particular account, what is the maximum business this particular client gave us, what is the minimum business this client gave us, and what is the average business this client has given us. So something like that. And also you can do sum. So you can also do a sum of like what is the total business this client has given us so far. So that's what you can do using roll-up fields. Again, this would be a lookup on the child record and you can select the master. So let's go and create that. Let's click next. Just to remember, you can have up to 40 relationships on any custom object, but you can have only 2 master detail relationships on an object, and you can have up to 38 lookup relationships, right? So in order to create a master detail relationship, we'll first go and create a new custom object. Now some of you will question, why can't we create a master detail relationship on the same object which we have been using in previous videos, right? Which is student. Well, you can actually create a master detail relationship on that object as well, but there's a reason why I'm not creating that, and that is that master detail relationship is required on the child object. So if we go and create a master detail relationship on the student object, that would become the child, and we'll have to create a master to another object. So in that case, our student records would have to have a master in order to be created. But adding to this, we have already created certain number of records on our student object in the previous videos. So if you go and create a master detail relationship now, you would get an error saying that you cannot create a master detail relationship on an object which has records in the database. So if you want to create a master detail on student object, then you have to first go and delete all the records on the student object, or alternatively create an object like I'm creating right now, and then this object would be our child object, and we'll create a lookup to the student object. So let's call this object as fees, and the student can pay fee multiple times, the fees for first quarter, the second quarter, third quarter, fourth quarter, etc. Let's call this as fees, and then fees would be linked to the student, and so this would be a master detail relationship to student. So let's call it fees, fee, and the who label would be fees, and then we would allow reporting on it. Yes, if we want to check like whether the fees was paid or not, etc., and how much fees has been paid by the student. We'll not allow it to the chatter group, we'll just leave it blank, and we'll also change the fee name to auto number, and let's call it something like ABC, and then 6 zeros, and the starting number would be 1, right? So that's a format. We'll call it fee number, and let's allow search on it. Let's create a custom object tab for this. So once I'm checking this box, so it will quickly do that, so you'll not have to go into tabs and create it like we saw the other time. I'll just click save here, and now I'll select the, so we see credit card, let's select that, and let's click next. Let's keep everything as default, and let's click save. So we now have our object with us, which is fees. Let's go and create a master detail on it. So we'll click new and click master detail relationship, click next, select our parent here, which would be student. So let's click student here, click next, and so let's keep the values as default. You can also set up the lookup filter here, but we are not doing it for the time being. So here you see sharing settings option. So you have two options. One is read only and the other one is read write. Read write is checked by default. So let's see what both of these options allow you to do. So if you say read only, then what will happen is that all the users who at least have read access to the master record would be able to create, edit, or delete the related detail records, right? So what will happen basically is anybody who on their profile has at least read access would be able to create, edit, or delete the fees object, right? Similarly, if we say read write, then this will allow users with at least read / write access to the master record to create, edit, or delete detailed record. So basically anybody who has read and write access to the student object, they will be able to create, edit, or delete fees object as well. So this is why we say the child in the master detail relationship derives access from the parent. This is where you define the access to the child record. By default here it is checked read write, so we'll keep that. Then the next option you see here is allow reparenting. So this is a very interesting option which basically says, so once a child is created, you can change the parent to another parent. So what basically would happen in this scenario, you can change the parent. So let's say a fees record is initially linked to one student. You can change that fees record from linked to student A to student B. This option is, we'll see in the later part of the video how it affects the user interface, but be very cautious whether you allow reparenting or not because it affects a lot of things. But if your business requirement asks you to allow reparenting, then you should check this box. So whenever somebody asks you to link up two objects together, so first question you should ask them is that whether you want them to be strongly related or loosely related. If they want it to be strongly related, then it has to be a master detail relationship. If it is a loose relationship, then you can have a lookup relationship between those two objects, and then ask all these questions: what level of access is need to be granted, and whether it can be allowed for reparenting, etc. Very interesting option here that we see is custom report type. This is very important as well, because what happens is whenever you create a custom object, there is a report type which is created to it, and which we'll see in the reporting and dashboards section. But for now being, whenever you create a new field, always check this checkbox. So what happens is when a user has created a report out of your custom report type, and this field is not added to that custom report because you unchecked this box, then the user will come back and complain to you that they are not able to find this field on the report. Then, as an administrator, you or your team members would find it challenging to identify what has actually gone wrong in that report, because there are multiple things which could go wrong. So first is that user might not have access to this field, so then you'll have to check all of their profiles and permissions whether they have got access to this field. Then the next step would come that you would come to see which type of report they are using, and then you'll go into that report and find it. So it's always safe to add to keep this box checked, which is checked by default, so that your field is automatically added to the report type, and it is available in all the report types which are associated with this object. So it's easier and convenient for the user. Whenever they want to add this field to their report, they can quickly go and select the field and add it. Otherwise, as an administrator, it might become very challenging for you to later on identify why this field is not available in the report which they are trying to create. Basically, what you see here is that this section is not editable. Why? Because this is a child relationship, and so all the profiles which would have access to student object would automatically get access to the fees object. So this is something very interesting on the master detail relationship, which I told you earlier as well, and hence you don't see an option to edit the visibility and read only sections here, because that is being derived from the student object. So if you go and revoke access on the student object to any of these profiles, then fees object would automatically be revoked from that particular profile. Then we would add this particular field to the fees, to the page layout on the fees object, which is very much important because this is a required field and has to be available on the page layout. Then we'll click next, and then this would add a related list. So you can change the related list label here, but we'll just keep it as default. And we are adding this related list to the student layout, which is the page layout of the student object. And you also see this option to append related list to the user's existing customizations. So in case any of the users have done any customizations to the page layout, we would append. So appending basically means it would be added to the bottom most section of the page layout. So we would just append this related list to the existing page layouts, click save, and then we have got our student master detail relationship on the fees object. So let's go to the home. So we see the fees tab coming up here. Let's click on it and create a fees record. So we'll have to search for the student record. So let's say record 5, and we'll click save. So we have created a fee record. Obviously we'll have to create some more fields on the fee object in order to make it look like more realistic. But as you can see, it is linked to the student record. This was a required field, as you saw. And if I click on the student record now and go to the related section, so you can see it shows one fees and the fee number here, and this is how it is related. So the relationship when you see it on the screen looks similar. You see a lookup here on the child. So you see a lookup here on the child, and you see the related list on the parent, right? So but did you just notice that But did you just notice that when we tried editing it, it did not allow us to edit the parent. And why is that so? This is because we chose parenting not allowed. So once a master is selected, it is selected and you cannot reparent a child. However, you do have abilities while creating the master detail relationship to allow reparenting, but be very careful of that if you opt that option. Because what happens is when you reparent a child record, all the sharing calculations run in the background, and that takes a lot of time to do that. So that's how you create a master detail relationship. Please share your questions, thoughts, and feedback in the comments section, and I'll get back to you.